Mary Ann Beckwith
You
from
bet.
Michigan.
Yeah, Upper
And you're-
Michigan.
Upper Michigan? What part of Michigan are you from?
We are in the very top of the western Upper Peninsula, about 550 miles north of Detroit. So you drive.
Upper Harbor?
We're
Or
actually in Houghton Hancock. Yeah.
Houghton Hancock,
Yeah,
okay.
that's where I am.
Hockey,
And
hockey. Like,
lots of hockey, lots of copper.
yeah.
Copper comes out of the ground looking like a copper kettle. It's wonderful.
Yes.
And it's lots of snow. So it's not as cold as a lot of places in the north, but we get wonderful, wonderful snow.
Right.
And to a great depth. So if you want some black diamond Midwest skiing, that's where you go. So,
I spent an eventful week in Calumet,
oh my gosh.
and it felt like it was during the winter
Mhm.
or fall, and it felt like I was on the moon
Yes.
because there was very little to define it.
Yeah. It's an interesting and beautiful place to live.
So you're 4 days into your workshop here at Cheap Joe's. It's 2016,
16.
June. You've had beautiful weather.
We've had gorgeous weather.
So how's the workshop going this week?
Oh, it's fantastic. We've got a good number of people in the room. Everybody has an open mind and a great attitude. The energy has been super. Part of that's done by you guys because we get here in the morning, the lights are on, nobody has to worry about the temperature. We've got music to listen to until the teacher gets on stage, essentially. There's lunch. We just finished the best lunch, and we can now paint until 4 o'clock in the afternoon uninterrupted, and others worry about whether there's enough soft drinks or whatever. Coffee's always available. It's really hard to be unhappy here. And the weather this week has been really spectacular, so I'll take it. It's in the 70s and 80s. It's beautiful.
I think we have a reputation as being hospitable.
I think that's
So-
the case.
Sometimes you think we go overboard, but it's
Well, those brownies that we had for dessert today were the best
they
I've
are.
ever had.
So it's a good caterer.
Yep.
So
And
you're
the
and
best part is that anything you want or need, anything that you might just long for to try is here and available in the shop right next door. Almost too easy, but it's great. So, but it's a good place to try things out and see if you like it. And if so, then get your stash and make sure you've got enough to get you through till the next workshop here at Cheap Joe's.
It's my understanding you do bring a buying crowd to Cheap Joe's.
Yes.
And I guess that's because of the type of art you do, which leads me to my first real question. And how would you describe your art?
Actually, I think my art is
Rushes are done.
freewheeling and fun. Let's put it that way. My idea is that my work has been described as experimental water media. And that means everything from spraying paint on to using cobwebs to create patterns and textures, rolling layers and layers of paint on afterwards, and creating designs which are really wonderful. So part of what I really like to do is to get out there, find new materials, new equipment to use. We're using basting brushes to create grasses and trees, and those are just basting brushes from the dollar store. It's been kind of fun. So we're having a really good time using materials that aren't typically found in the average artist's inventory, yet aren't pricey and actually work really, really well.
So technically you wouldn't call it abstract.
The results of the workshop are both abstract and representational.
Okay.
The things I teach can be used as backgrounds for very traditional paintings,
Okay.
or they can be used to help create an abstract painting. But no, it's not definitely not just abstract. So it's a foundation for many things.
So do you spend most of your time painting or instructing or?
It's a happy mix of both. I do a few lectures and some talks with the people, so they'll get an idea of what the method will be, so that when they see it, it's not too unusual to them. I do a demo at least 2 times a day, sometimes 3, and keep them painting in between so that they can get as much practice what we're doing as possible.
Okay. So you come into a workshop and you come from Michigan to Boone, North Carolina, you've got a class, and I understand from talking to many instructors that when you come in, there's a responsibility as an instructor to your students. So taking that in key, what is your goal for your class? In other words, at the end of the week, what do you want your students to leave with?
Well, actually, I want them to leave as individual artists. I don't want them to come in and just copy what's done. I would like them to come in with a renewed sense of enthusiasm and excitement for what they're doing now. And that means whatever they choose to paint, that they feel much more excited, much more refreshed, and have an inventory of new ideas with which to play to create the images that they so want to create. I want them to have a lot of fresh concepts on ways to approach design in their work so that their design gets better. And I want them good and tired so they know that they've had a really good week. And that seems to be achieved in almost every workshop. But the biggest thing is I'd like to have them get some one-on-one time with me and with others in the workshop. And I encourage that greatly so that they can not only learn from me, but from one another and share. And pretty soon, long-time friendships are forged there, and it turns out to be a pretty good thing.
So, on the whole, would you say it's easier to approach your style of making art as opposed to someone who does landscapes and realism and
It's
or just different?
It's just different. I don't think it's easier. I don't think it's harder. Perhaps because people can make a form, a shape, a design that's never been seen before, it's not judged the same way as people who see trees every day and the artist just tried to draw a tree. And unless they're very successful at that, they might not get the comments, genuinely kind comments about it. Where with an abstraction, they might get some compliments because sometimes they've created something very exciting, very beautiful, and very unexpected.
Right.
So,
And what would you call a successful piece from a design, color standpoint? If you're going to hang it on your wall in your living room, 22 by 30, and it works. What does that mean, it works?
well, I'm going to say a successful piece sometimes doesn't mean a really good painting. A
Okay.
successful piece means that the student has learned a tremendous amount from it.
Okay.
And it may not be the best and final painting in what that artist does. They may do it again later with the knowledge they've
Right.
come at it, they've obtained in the first try. But sometimes a really successful piece is one that's opened an artist's eyes to all of the things that they can do and all the things they have yet to learn. So it may not be the piece that hangs on the wall. It may be the third or fourth piece done in
Right.
that style that finally makes the wall. And with that, it's simply a matter of, I encourage the students to find a palette that they love, a sense of color that they like,
Right.
to go through magazines and look at pictures that they've taken and figure out, look at their wardrobe, look at the way they've decorated their home, figure out what colors satisfy them, and then to look for good pattern, good design, lights and darks, large shapes, small shapes, and actually incorporate all that into a painting. And that's a good juggling act, and it sometimes takes a little while to get
Right.
that. Not often in the first painting, but it's well worth trying. And if you get the tools this week, and a lot of good paintings have happened in there if you look around.
Right. Yeah.
We've had some very successful paintings. But if you get the tools, then you can take those tools home. And with the techniques that we're using, we're taking photographs with our phones of each step as we finish a painting.
Right.
So that they've got a record of how they went about making that particular part of the image. And they can take all those tools back with them pretty easily and document it and just keep moving ahead. So actually a really good painting makes you want to paint the next painting.
Right.
And so that's
So part of your modus operandi is to get people excited about creating paints and
Absolutely.
making art. And
Mhm.
so let's say there's a room filled with 100 people and you're in front, and the question being put to you is, give me a tip or two on how to become a better artist.
Okay. The first tip I would give them is to look at art, as much art as you can, whenever you've got free time. Just pick up art books, go to museums, go out on the internet, and study the work of others in your free time. The next tip would be to paint often, to paint as much as you can, and when you're really tired, paint even more. Just keep painting, because that really is part of what makes, I think, our art improve. But those would be the two tricks. Paint as much as you can and look at lots and lots of art. And
So it's kind of like the guy who asked the guy in New York, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the guy says, practice, practice, practice. Remember that old joke?
Yeah, I
so-
do.
So in order to become an artist, you have to make art. Technically.
That's right.
You can't just pick up your paints once a month and say, I'm
Right.
an artist.
Or take a once-a-year workshop.
Or take a
It really
once-a-year.
requires a dedication to the process.
Right.
So, but it's not as hard as you think. It becomes addictive.
Right.
It's like meditating or yoga or anything else that people become very entrenched in. It just feels so good to paint that you want to do it more and more.
I took your video home, I think last year, and watched it, and then did the whole thing with the spray paint and the webbing, and did some interesting. Must be my phone. There's an alert.
Oh, tornadoes.
Might be a weather
Storm?
alert.
Let me grab my glasses while I'm scratching. Okay.
So I took it and I watched it and I made some paintings, and I was pleased with a couple, wasn't so pleased with others, but then I took the ones I wasn't pleased with and made shapes and cutouts, and then used them for collages,
Mhm.
which worked really well. And people go, wow, how did you do that? Well, I don't really remember how I did it, but it's there, and it swirls and colors and splotches, and so you can actually do a lot with
Yeah.
what you've done, and that's fun for me, is to kind of cut
Mhm.
things up, and I know you like to cut things up.
I do too.
And I got some paper with holes, different kinds of holes, and spray painted and
Yeah.
splotted with a brush and made shapes, and just
So-
kind of was inspired by you and Robert Burridge,
Mhm.
kind of the same, throw some paint on, negative paint back into make a bouquet out of it.
I know.
So
I know.
he makes it look easy, you make it look easy. I guess the more you do it, the easier it
The easier it
becomes.
gets.
So,
The easier it gets. And again, it's that paint until
Right.
you're tired